Are banks helping the scammers take your money in 2023? That's what we're going to talk about today on Star Knows Credit. I will be right back. Thank you for tuning in to Star Knows Credit. On this channel, I talk personal and business credit and everything else that's going to help us level up and get the bag. So thank you so much for tuning in. Today, guys, I'm going to take a detour off our normal beaten path and bring you some information that you really need to be paying attention to, especially going into this holiday season. We are now about to be in December the 1st. We are high into the shopping season with Black Friday and Cyber Monday just passing. So it is very important that you really pay attention to the scams that are going on. It happens every year around this time. It really ramps up the scammers, but you really got to pay attention now because the banks are not giving back money as quickly as they used to, or even at all. So I always keep my ears to these financial streets. As y'all know, if y'all are returning people that look at my content, that I worked in banking for 15 years. That is my background, my experience. I just left the banking industry last year, September of 2022, to run my own business. But I worked in banking from 2007 all the way up until 2022. My degree is in accounting and in business. So I know a lot about the area. And so I always keep my ears to the grind to see what is going on, since I'm no longer behind the scenes. But I do want to know what's going on with these banks and what's going on when it comes to scams and those type of things. Actually, when I left the bank in last year, I worked in the electronic banking department, where I looked at debit card fraud, looked at all those different type of things, online fraud, all types of stuff like that. So I'm really, abreast to that type of action going on in the banking system. So when I see these types of interviews on the news where people are getting their money taken and the banks is like, too bad, so sad, it kind of really, hits me really hard. And that's why I have to bring this information to you. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to pull up some different news articles that have been in the recent few months, few days. And let's look at these and see what can we do to protect ourselves from these scammers if the banks are not going to protect us as they should.
Washington man says scammers got him for nearly $60,000.
But he says the bank knew it was happening and failed to stop them. Fox 13's Matthew Smith has been digging into this, and there are some lessons in this for anybody who's watching. Matthew?
The biggest thing here is how you react. In this case, the customer, Richard Wood, he contacted his bank. He went to his bank, but the FBI tells us that there are extra steps that we should all know about.
They were the ones who were supposed to be our protectors when it came to our account. And in my view of them right now is they're the villains.
It's safe to say Richard Woods felt let down by KeyBank. The small business owner says he became a customer in 2020 when his family bought these cottages in Long Beach, Washington. Fast forward to June 26th of this year. That's when the bank called to tell him about unusual activity. Called the main number to ensure it was the bank. It was, and they said they were handling it. The next day, the same call. That's when he went to a branch in person to report fraud. He felt confident until a text 2 days later.
My balance basically fell to, I believe, $38, somewhere in the $30 to $40 range. So then I immediately checked my banking account and noticed that $59,500 was being withdrawn.
Now, that amount being taken out was being taken out as an ACH debit. Basically, what you'd see for a payroll deduction. Woods did everything that you'd expect him to do. He called the bank, he went to the bank, and they were assuring him his money was safe. While they were investigating, that money wasn't going anywhere. In fact, he physically went to the bank to talk to his account manager on July 3rd. On the 5th, it was the branch manager. Then on the 6th, he was told the money would be back by the 18th. But after a few days turned to weeks, he was told on the 20th, the money was already gone. In fact, it moved banks all the way back on the 5th.
The bank allowed somebody to go in behind closed doors and steal almost $60,000 after my account's been flagged. The bank allowed this to happen.
Key Bank responded with this letter saying, quote, because the transactions occurred as a result of a compromise of your online banking following the provision of personal information to a third party, we attempted to recoup the funds. It goes on to explain they followed their protocols.
It's tough because the scammers will come at you from all different angles.
Tammy Miser is an FBI supervisory agent in Seattle. Now, as she explains it, the best move Woods could have made is to file a report online here at ic3.gov.
Domestic wires, ACHs needs to be fast. So the moment you get that alert or from your bank that money's gone out or that you log in and see that in your account, you need to report it to IC3. They have a good success rate as far as getting freezes on those accounts and people getting their money back.
For Woods, he could have been out of luck, but it turns out he wasn't giving up. While we were reporting on this story, he got his complaint on an executive's desk. When they learned Fox 13 was looking into it, their reaction changed. The money is now back in his account.
Persistence really paid off here. Now, I should say Key Bank isn't even commenting whether Wood is a customer of theirs, but we've looked at his emails with Key Bank, and they indicate that this landed all the way up on the CEO's desk, and a manager is now telling Wood that they're going to be reviewing their practices and training methods for situations just like this one. In the newsroom, Matthew Smith, Fox 13 News.
Before we go to this next one, it is really, really crazy to me that this had to go as far as the news and on the CEO's desk in order for them to give him his money back when he did everything right. He did everything right. As soon as he realized it was a scam, he went to the bank. He talked to different managers. He got everything notated. And by the 20th of July, they were basically saying, okay, your money's going to go away. And I'm glad that this customer right here did continue to push and was like, no, this is not acceptable. Y'all are going to give me my money back because y'all know this is a scam. Y'all know this was fraud. So these wire frauds are getting more and more common. Chase has really been notorious for it, but you got to be careful with these peer-to-peer apps like Zelle, Cash App, Venmo, all those different type of scams. But Zelle is really right now in the news, but you got to really pay attention to what's coming on your phone. Are you getting text messages randomly from the bank saying something like this has happened? Are you getting emails trying to get you to click something, or phone calls trying to get you to verify your information? All of those things you should ignore, okay? Ignore those things. They're even sending you fake tracking numbers, saying that you got a package that might be lost or something like that. And see, that right there is really, really going to get a lot of people with those fake tracking numbers and stuff like that, because this is the time of shopping. Everybody is spending money right now, right? So with that being said, you are expecting packages from Amazon. You're expecting packages from different retails. So this is going to be really, really key, guys, that y'all are paying attention to what's going on, because these banks are not going to eat everything. Everybody's not going to be able to get a news station out, and everybody's not going to be able to get their case on the CEO's desk, okay? So let's take a look at this one right here about the Zelle policy change. And where's Fargo? Hold on one second.
Consumers who lost money in imposter scams.
And Zelle specifically noted consumers who were tricked by crooks posing as their bank, and those people they think should be reimbursed for this. But a Tampa woman says her bank still hasn't given her money back. So what's up with that? She knew she'd better call banking to get some answers.
Jen Keith, I've exposed Zelle schemes for years. Sometimes banks reimburse the money and sometimes they don't. This policy change offered hope that in certain situations, the answer will now be yes. But as you're about to hear, in this case, the policy change has not helped this consumer.
They said, well, we never give money back from Zelle.
This is what Tara Thomas says her bank told her when she called to report $3,500 had been stolen from her account. The crook called her last month, impersonated her bank, Wells Fargo, and tricked her into giving up information that allowed them to Zelle themselves her money. She says she called her bank within 5 minutes of the transactions, but her claim has been denied. Last week, Zelle confirmed policy changes Tara hoped would help her. Since June 30th, Zelle says financial firms began reversing transfers for those tricked into sending money to crooks who claim to be a government agency or bank. Even so, Tara says Wells Fargo refused to change their decision in her case.
I know that they're giving money back to some people, and this was clearly a fraud case.
Zelle's statement to Better Call Bankin says, in part, our bank and credit union participants must reimburse consumers for qualifying imposter scams, including when a scammer impersonates a bank to trick a consumer into sending them money with Zelle. I sent this to Wells Fargo and received this statement back. We have reviewed the claim and are sharing our findings with our customer. While we cannot provide details on this case for privacy and confidentiality reasons, we stand behind our decision based on the facts in this specific situation. When a customer files a claim, we review and make a decision on the claim using the same Zelle rules, applicable laws, and regulatory guidance followed by all banks. Teresa Murray, consumer watchdog with the U.S. Public Interest Research Group, says Tara should file complaints with federal regulators.
I mean, here's the policy. This customer apparently fit it. And now the bank is saying, oh, no, we're not gonna give the person their money back. And we're not even going to tell you why. That's wrong.
Tara tells me Wells Fargo called her this afternoon to say they are standing by their decision not to reimburse her money. She wanted to know why, and she says that there is no clear explanation as to why, other than they think that this does not appear to be a fraud case.
Well, how would this policy be enforced in the first place? And I guess filing complaints, that's your only recourse? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, right now, yes. Consumers can file complaints with federal regulators who are tracking these issues with the state attorney general. As for enforcement, it's unclear right now because, as Keith mentioned, this is a voluntary policy change. It's not a law, and that is why consumer groups are pushing for more regulations because, again, it's a policy, and who's going to enforce it? It's Zelle, but as we've reported previously, Zelle is owned by 7 major banks, so it's kind of up in the air. It's a gray area.
Just depends on which bank and their mood of the day, I guess, until we get some more enforcement along through that. Thank you.
Top story tonight, spotting imposter scams. An East Texas man says he's out $49,000 after a scammer pretending to be his bank tricked him into giving him personal information.
Now, while this man works to solve this headache with Chase, he has a message to share with the community.
Our Jose Alonso joins us now. And Jose, what did he have to say?
So I talked to Angel Pineda, a traveling nurse who banks with Chase and makes major transactions like rent payments all the time. And he's actually used to getting fraud calls from Chase after paying a huge bill like his vehicle. But in mid-December, something was off about a fraudulent phone call that came from what he says was a legitimate Chase phone number.
As if Chase was calling me any other day. It was labeled under them.
Angel Pineda says the call was labeled as a U.S. number. He's had to call Chase before to authorize large transactions like rent.
So there wasn't any reason for me to suspect anything, and then I got the notification for fraudulent activity for a small amount. I was like, no, it's not me.
The way Angel described the call was like a fear tactic.
They were just like, your account's not safe. It's compromised, so we need to make sure your money's secure and move it to a new account.
They asked for his personal information to make a new Chase account to wire his money into. After a week went by, he called that same number back to ask about the fraud situation.
Well, the new account disappeared. It wasn't there anymore.
Leaving him out $49,000 without a trace on where it went. Michelle Mills with the Better Business Bureau in Central East Texas says scam calls that match your bank's information are not uncommon.
This kind of fraud kind of falls into the category of imposter scam.
This right is crazy to me because he's getting the call from the number that's supposed to be the bank's number. This is not uncommon, guys, that these hackers are somehow using the bank's number where, they are getting so sophisticated with this that Oh my God, I can't believe it. This guy is used to getting alerts from Chase because he does large stuff, paying his rent, whatever. So he's used to getting these alerts. He's done everything right. And he's going through this with Chase. This is crazy to me, guys. This is so crazy.
And so that's just a really big scam right now.
According to the Federal Trade Commission's 2021 Consumer Sentinel Network data book, over 2.9 million fraud reports were reported, including imposter scams, with young people reported losing money to fraud more often than older people.
And this is how they make their money. So they're just moving through, throughout the country, just doing these types of things and just targeting different areas at a time, or everybody at one time, because with technology, you can contact millions of people.
Innocent people like Angel.
I feel like Chase is just like, they don't care. They're just trying to sweep it under the rug and move on, and it's their fault this happened. And, I just want to get my life back, because it's gone.
Angel says he's been having to rack up debt on credit cards to continue paying bills, but thankfully, this isn't the end of his story. He says a Chase executive called him today and plans to review his case and call him with an update. We also reached out to Chase via email for a statement on Angel's situation. We did not get a response today. Back to y'all.
La Jolla man is sharing a warning tonight after getting conned out of $18,000 in a telephone scam. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Carlo Cicchetto.
And I'm Kirsten Holmes, in for Marcella Lee. As CBS 8's David Gottfredson reports, the victim agreed to be interviewed, all to help prevent people from getting scammed out of their hard-earned money.
The first thing I saw on my phone was U.S. Bank customer service.
Somehow, the scammers knew Mark Del Muro's cell phone number and that he was a customer at U.S. Bank. A man called him saying he was investigating unusual transactions on Mark's account.
Did you make a purchase at Kroger? Did you make a purchase with Apple? Did you make this purchase with Walmart?
Mark became worried because he had not made those purchases, and the man told him they were going to have to shut down Mark's bank account.
The initial panic of like, hey, somebody's in our bank account. And the first thing you want to do is like, oh my God, I got to stop it. Got to stop it.
The scammer said U.S. Bank would text Mark a code, and he needed to repeat the code back to verify his identity.
The texts were actually going to my wife's phone, and I'm asking for the codes, which in hindsight, were basically codes to allow him to change my password.
The con man used the code to change Mark's password on the bank website and then wired $18,000 to a Chase bank account in New Jersey. An hour later, Mark called U.S. Bank, but it was too late.
They did an investigation, and they just said that, well, looks like you went ahead and gave that passcode, and thus you have authorized that person to take the money from your account and wire it to another account.
U.S. Bank told Mark there was nothing they could do.
99.9% of our victims, once the money is gone, there's nothing that we could do to get it back.
Scott Perello is a deputy district attorney in the San Diego DA's Elder Abuse Unit. But it's not just the elderly who are getting scammed.
This is happening to very intelligent people, college professors, engineers, former law enforcement. It's happening to everyone across the entire spectrum.
He says it's a common tactic to scare the victim.
The scammers are trying to instill fear and urgency so that the person being scammed doesn't have time to rationally reflect on what's happening.
The best advice, slow down and verify before you take any action.
If you get a call from anybody, just hang up and then call that business or call that bank and just make sure that, hey, is this legit?
Now, U.S. Bank emailed me a statement saying the bank will never call a client and ask for login information or a verification code. If in doubt, hang up and call the bank directly. U.S. Bank also told me they would take another look at Mark's claim and see what they can do to help. In La Jolla, David Gottfredson, CBS 8.
A scary day for some Bank of America customers Wednesday. They checked their accounts and found their money gone.
I missed $1,400 from my account, and they're telling me that there's no way they can help us. You missing money too? There you go.
It was a nationwide issue.
I get a text alert and it says my account is overdrawn.
One customer tweeted their balance of negative $2,000. Most complaints involve the payment transfer service Zelle.
I did see that what was causing my negative balance was the Zelle transfer that I had at one time seen in my account and had received notification, it just disappeared.
I went to see my bank account and then I saw there's $100 less.
Zelle is owned by Bank of America and 6 other banks. It issued a statement saying, "We understand that a Zelle network financial institution may have experienced issues processing some of their customers' Zelle transactions, which has now been resolved." Many customers tried to contact Bank of America customer service, but say they were unsuccessful. The bank apologized on social media, saying Zelle transactions made between January 14th and January 17th may be delayed in occurring and posting to accounts. Transfers will appear in your account as soon as possible. As of 3 p.m. Eastern, they said the problem was resolved, but did not give a reason for the disruptions. It's not the first time Zelle customers have had problems. The app is facing a lawsuit, with consumer advocates and lawmakers citing increasing fraud. A recent report claimed there were nearly 200,000 cases of fraudulent transactions on Zelle between 2021 and 2022, involving more than $200 million. Some customers may face overdraft fees from yesterday's glitch. There was no immediate word from Bank of America on how any fees will be handled. Andrea Fuji.
So I just want to tell you guys, because I work inside of the fraud department, the online banking, electronic banking department of my last financial institution where I work, when you use peer-to-peer apps like Cash App, Zelle, Venmo, PayPal, and those type of fintech apps, when you are using those apps as a go-between to your bank account, you must understand that because you're using a third-party app, you are taking the recourse from the bank having to give you your money back through scams. So because you are using these cash apps and Venmos and all these stuff to pull money from your account instead of you paying whoever directly through a credit card, which usually has zero liability protection, or even if you use your debit card, because they have the Visa logos and stuff like that, that's supposed to do the zero liability. But when you're going through a third-party app, which is not FDIC insured, because they're not a real bank, they're fintech companies, okay? So you got to understand that that takes the banks a little bit off the hook because you are using a third-party app. Now with that that previous one, that Zelle clip that I showed with the Wells Fargo, now they are trying to rectify the situation. But if you got Wells Fargo saying, hey, we still don't believe that this is something that Zelle should reimburse, then what are you going to do? Okay, like that lady that said that she lost what, 4,000 or whatever through the Zelle. And Wells Fargo is saying, nah, we don't think that your case is a case, even though Zelle's been reversing some transactions. Now, one thing too, banks with these wire fraud ones like Chase and stuff like that, where they're doing these ACH debits. I worked in, okay, I did wires before. All right, I've done wires. And no, I've never worked at a huge banking institution like Wells Fargo, Chase, Bank of America, none of those big one, US banks, and none of those. I cannot believe that these bigger banks can drop the ball like that, because even in the smaller credit unions that I worked in, and the last bank that I worked in that is fairly large for my area, there are dual control systems when it comes to wire. Okay, when you're doing a wire, all right, there's supposed to be somebody verifying when you send a wire. Somebody should call you and verify the wire, verify that you signed for this money to come out. And this is usually a dual control system. So if I take the wire information, somebody else has to check behind me and make sure that I'm not creating a wire that the customer did not authorize. So usually this is a dual control system. And also a wire can be reversed, because usually when you're using and I can't say for a bigger bank because I never worked there, but whenever I've done a wire, even in credit unions, even in the last bank I worked at, A person puts in the wire, somebody releases the wire. Always two people doing this thing. If I put the wire in, somebody else is going to check behind me before the wire is actually sent. We're going to talk to everybody. We're going to do the checks and the balances to make sure that this customer does want this wire to go to wherever it's going. Okay. And even where I work at, we have stopped sweetheart scams from people that was thinking that they were sending money legit to family or to people they don't met online. They was getting catfish. So we have actually intercepted fraud at the last institution that I worked at, because that's how due diligent we was to make sure that it is legit. We ask more questions. Do you know who this person is that you're supposed to be sending this money to? How do you know this person? Where did this person supposed to live? Have you actually? And then once we start asking all these questions, a lot of the times that's how we discovered that people were getting sweetheart scam. People thought it was their family members and stuff like that, and it wasn't. Okay, so we was able to intercept a lot of those wire frauds because we asked more questions. But when you're dealing with bigger banks, they're not going to ask all those questions. That's what it seems like to me. I can't say for sure because I have not worked at Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, none of those, but they're always in the news. So there's a reason why they're always in the news, right? But I'm going to play this last Zelle scams on the rise, and then we're going to talk about Zelle just a little bit more before I end this video.
Sell items online. Authorities say con artists are preying on those using one specific platform.
That's right. It's a look at why users of money transferring apps like Zelle should be careful.
Personally, I don't sell anything online anymore.
Chris Blufstein is a cybersecurity journalist, and he's given up posting anything for sale online or on an app because he says it's too risky. Scams are growing more and more prevalent, and sadly, they work.
Unfortunately, people do fall for these kind of things quite often. It's very lucrative.
The latest landscape for con artists appears to be the cash transfer platform Zelle.
It's basically a way to send money to somebody else.
Zelle is similar to Venmo or PayPal with one key difference.
Zelle doesn't have any way to get money back after you've done a transaction.
When it leaves your bank's account, it's gone for good.
It's really very much like handing cash over to another party.
Computer science expert at NYU's Tandon School of Engineering, Justin Kapos, says scammers are turning to Facebook Marketplace to extract money from people selling items online. They'll tell a seller they're interested and ready to pay, but they ask the seller to first upgrade their Zelle account.
There is actually no way to do that. There is no upgraded membership inside of Zelle.
They'll send a link, hoping a seller clicks it, makes a purchase, and the scammer gets the money. So keep your eye out for the red flags.
The key thing is you don't click a link that's been sent to you by a stranger.
If the money is supposed to flow one direction and they're asking you to do it the other one, then there's clearly something wrong going on here.
Now, Zelle responded to our request for comment with 3 important tips for users. Only send money to those you trust. Beware of payment scams. If a deal sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And treat Zelle like cash. The company also wants users to watch the video they put on their website on how to avoid marketplace scams.
Yeah, anytime someone who's trying to buy something is very enthusiastic to pay right away.
They're excited from the get-go. I'll give you whatever you want. Yeah.
Like, how much
Probably a
is it?
bad
What is
sign.
the payment? Yeah, you got to, red flag all over.
Popular apps like Venmo and Cash App may make payments easier, but scammers are trying to get a piece of the action, and they're targeting a certain group of people.
Our consumer investigator Hank Winchester this morning with who's at risk and how you can protect yourself.
They're apps that so many of us use all the time, like Venmo, PayPal, Cash App. They make life a little bit easier, right? But the scammers know it. This morning, who they're targeting right now and how to protect yourself. It is the fast, easy, and convenient way to pay. Apps like Venmo, Zelle, PayPal, electronic payments made in just seconds, and use of these apps up dramatically.
There is more opportunity for fraudulent activity, but again, I think it's different levels depending on which of those apps or online services you're using for sure.
Dewey Steffen, CEO of Great Lakes Wealth, advises when possible, use cash. And credit offers you much more protection than just using an app.
There's industry standards to protect the consumer against any fraudulent activity and other protections for the consumers. So there's ways to audit and have recourse against the transactions and ease of use as well.
Most importantly, know exactly who's receiving that money. If you're using an app, confirm the recipient's account information.
They will guarantee the payment to where you send it, but you again have to make sure that you send it to the right place.
And now many teens, police say, are receiving requests for payments from what appears to be a friend. Well, they're not. They're scammers. They're creating fake accounts which may look similar, but they're not. Beware.
You're thinking you're helping a friend. But what's really happening is the scammers spoofing their account, taking their profile picture, making a username that looks similar but isn't quite right.
And remember, with a lot of these payment apps, once you've made a payment, that money is gone. It is very difficult to get the money back once you've been scammed. So take your time and make sure the money is going to the person it's intended for. I'm Hank Winchester. Help me, Hank.
So as you can see, I have a whole scam playlist that I will link down in the description if you want to continue to look at this, because this could go on for a whole hour or more as I constantly are looking at these videos. But I just wanted to bring something to you all's attention about Zelle particularly. On this clip, I just want the first part of it. I'm going to just play the first part of it because it's like 12 minutes long. But I just want you to see something about Zelle.
Never have cash on me, just my credit cards. And I pay my friends, my bills, all using this. This has honestly changed the world and how money moves through the economy. An estimated 149 million Americans, or 62% of smartphone users, use peer-to-peer payment services. That's up from 90 million people in 2019. Stocks of payment services like PayPal, which owns Venmo, and Block, which owns Cash App, boomed in 2020 as more people began sending money digitally. And then there's Zelle, which launched in 2017 and is owned by 7 big banks.
That's the part that I wanted you guys to see. Zelle is owned by 7 big banks. And we heard that in the other clips, the other news ones, where Wells Fargo, Bank of America, U.S. Bank, these banks, even JP Morgan Chase right here, right? These banks form Zelle. So how is it that you guys formed this peer-to-peer app and don't want to help your customers get their money back? That's crazy to me. That is insane, okay? Because you guys formed an app that is getting scammed. And you know that y'all are FDIC insured financial institutions. Why would you create an app that is not? Because you want to compete with PayPal. You want to compete with Cash App. You want to compete with Venmo, who is owned by PayPal. You're trying to be in that same space as them. And y'all are federal insured banking institutions that are using fintech apps as well. That's insane to me. That's why I preach smaller institutions. I know these banks, Truist, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Capital One, Chase. I understand that they are in many locations, and it makes it very, very easy for you to bank, especially if you travel. I understand that. I do. But you run the risk of just being a customer that with no face. You just got money sitting in that account. You have no face, okay? But when you deal with credit unions and smaller banks, your local bank, I'm not saying have all your eggs in one bank. You should have at least 2 banks, because if one freezes your money, like what Bank of America's done, with some of these other bigger financial institutions has done to people, where they freeze your money, close your accounts and all that stuff. Yes, you want to make sure you have money somewhere else. And that somewhere else needs to be a smaller bank. If you have a bigger bank, you need to be in a credit union, whether it's Navy Fed or your local credit union. Local credit unions that might be attached to your job where you work at. A lot of credit unions are attached to people's workplace. So there may be a credit union. You could talk to your HR department and see what other financial institutions that work along with your employer. But you got to make sure that you are doing your due diligence and not letting these scammers and these banks take advantage of you by using their services that they are not ensuring that if you send this money to whoever, that it's going to get to the people that really needs to get it, or if you're getting a text message from Bank of America or Wells Fargo saying that you sent Zelle money and you haven't said anything, or that somebody's trying to send you some money, because that's also a scam that's going around, saying that you need to confirm this money coming into your account, and you click a link, and then they're taking you all over the place so you can get this supposed money that supposed to be coming to you from somebody that you wasn't even expecting it to come from. So sometimes we are being victimized ourselves because we are trying to get free money. You know, how many times have you been on your Facebook page and somebody send you a random instant message or whatever, a DM saying, what's your cash app? Like, I don't know you. Why would I give you my cash app? But how many people do that? Posting it up on their page. Oh, I'm feeling generous today. Let me give somebody $1,000. Inbox me your cash app, or inbox me your Zelle email, or inbox me your Venmo user, or whatever. How many times have we thought that we're going to get something free and was played victim ourselves? It happens. So we got to make sure that we're doing our due diligence, because the banks is not going to be giving out all this money back to us, especially if we are trying to be a participant in some fraud, knowingly or not. Okay, because nobody's giving you no free money that you know random on the internet. Okay, so we got to make sure that we're using our brain too, but make sure that you're not just clicking on any links that you're not familiar with, any types of text messages that's coming through. Most banks will not call you, or they will, if they do send you an email, it should be a secured email where you may have to log into a secure site. But I will tell you one thing, that's why you should always have a local bank that handles your majority of your money situations, so that you can go inside a branch. These online banking institutions, Chime and all that stuff, that do not, even Capital One, in some areas they do have banking branches, but some they do not. You want to make sure that you have a physical location bank that handles the majority of your money, because you can't walk into Chime. You can't walk into some of these online found institutions that do not have brick and mortar buildings for you to go in. Or, like I said, I understand a lot of people like to use Bank of America and Wells Fargo and US Banks and Truist and all these different Chase, because they're everywhere and it makes it convenient. But those are the ones that are getting the most fraud and not giving back money. Those are the ones that are not giving back money, because they're not, that you're a faceless customer to them. They really don't know too much about you, you know. So because everything being electronic, nobody's going in to make deposits, nobody's going in to make withdrawals, nobody's sitting down. You can do all the loan applications and everything now online. You don't have to go into institutions. So these bankers do not know you by name. They don't know you by face. If you walk into their institutions right now, they have no idea who you are. They got to pull up all your information on a computer screen, because they're not operating in a relationship banking style. These bigger institutions don't. That's what you will get with your credit unions and your smaller banking institutions that's local to you. Make sure that you have a local credit union, a local bank that you can actually walk into the institution and do business if you need to, if you have fraud. Like the guy that with the key bank thing, he did everything right. That lost the 60,000. I mean, he did everything right. I'm grateful that he got his money back. But look, you got to go all the way through news channels, getting the news involved, getting it all the way up to the CEOs and all that type of stuff. Like I said before, who has that kind of access? Everybody doesn't have that kind of access, okay? So we have to make sure that we are doing our due diligence. Also, guys, I can't preach this enough. Freeze y'all's credit reports, okay? Make sure that your credit reports are frozen, because if people got any little bit of information, like wanting you to verify the last 4 digits of your Social Security, I'm pretty sure they got the other digits that they need, okay? They just want you to verify that what they have is correct. So that's why they ask you, verify the last 4 digits of your social security number. That way they can put the pieces together, okay? Verify the last 5 digits of your bank account number. They are trying to put the pieces together, all right? So when they are sending you these random things saying, okay, you got this fraud alert, you got all this and all this urgency, and if you don't do this, they're going to take all your money, blah, 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 this and that and the other. Hang up. Don't click on any links in your emails or on your text messages. Call your bank. Would you know the number to be? Call somebody that you know at the bank. Like me, every financial institution that I bank with, I try to know somebody there. Whether I call somebody on customer service line, like Navy Fed is not here. I have an account with Navy Fed, but they're 2 hours away from me. If I call in the customer service, I'm taking names. And if I need to call back, if I really like how that customer service agent helped me, I'm going to try to get back to that person when I call again and be like, hey, Susan helped me. She's out of Texas or whatever. I really like her. Is there a possibility that I can talk to Susan that's out there in Texas, because she really seems to know what she's talking about, and see if I can't deal with the same person all the time. When I worked on the teleline, when I first started in banking back in 2007, I had customers that only wanted to deal with me. And that went on all the way up through my whole 15 years. As I climbed up, in the banking institution, I still have people that just wanted to deal with me. So if you can get in with a banking institution where you got people where just want to deal with you and just want, and you want to do your business only with them, that way they are knowing your habits, what you would and would not do. Okay, that's why I do. That's why it's so important, because if a wire comes out your account for $60,000, those are red flags for smaller institutions, because they know your spending habits. They get to know your spending habits. But when you're dealing with bigger banks that, like I said, you're a faceless customer, they may not know that. And even with Chase, shame on them for that traveling nurse, that the one with the 49,000, that he says that he gets all these alerts all the time from them. And then when I really need y'all to show up, y'all drop the ball. When I really need y'all to show up, now you send me all kind of alerts from big to small ones. I'm paying my rent, paying my car payment, whatever. You send me all these alerts, but now when I really needed y'all to show up for me, y'all did not show up for me, and now I'm out of $49,000. That is not some pennies. And even if it's $10, if it's $1, if it was taken out your account fraudulently, that's still too much money, because that's why we put our money in these banks and in these institutions, so that our money is safe. It's safer than if we put it underneath the mattress. It's supposed to be anyway, So, guys, I want you to leave me some comments down in the comment section and let me know, how do this make you feel, knowing that you may not get your money back every time. And now that we're in the holiday season, what are you going to do different to protect yourself if you have been clicking links and sending money through Cash App, sending money through Zelle? What are you going to do different? I tell you what I do. I use my credit cards for everything. Everything. I don't ever use my debit card. I rarely use my debit card, guys, because zero fraud liability. If I have a fraudulent transaction to come through on my account, on my credit card, American Express, whatever one I use, I'm contacting that bank, because guess what? It's not my money, it's their money that is being taken away. And they're going to fight harder to get their money back than they're going to fight to get my money back. Okay. So I use credit cards to pay for my online purchases, whether it's with Amazon, whoever, that's who I use. I use my credit card. I don't put my debit card information on the web. I don't put nothing out there that they can get direct access to my bank account, so that they can pull fake wires and all that type of stuff. Another thing too, a lot of people leave way too much money in their checking accounts, and they use their debit card for everything. You don't need to keep no more in your checking account than your bills and what you know you're going to spend, and whatever minimum that your bank requires you to keep in there to avoid whatever fees they may charge. Everything else, all the excess needs to be in a savings account that can be linked to the checking account or not linked to the checking account. But you got to make it harder for these scammers to get your money. Okay. They should not be able to withdraw $49,000 straight out of a checking account. Why do you need that kind of money just sitting in your checking account? Okay. I'm not victim nobody. I'm just letting you know that we got to be more due diligent and making sure that we're taking all the precautions to not be a victim ourselves, because we taking all the steps to make sure that we are doing our part too, just in case the bank gives us some pushback, because they're going to say, well, you didn't do what you were supposed to do. And I think that's what a lot of them are using to get away with not giving the customer their money back. They're too busy saying, well, after our investigation, we found that you gave these people your information, so you authorized transaction. Well, I thought I was talking to you, Chase. I thought you were sending me a verification information, Chase, because you're always sending me verification information. The number had Chase on there that called me. So when I'm talking to you, and I'm telling you guys, look at the scam playlist. People that saying that they actually did the two-factor authentication. I can't say that word, but you know what I'm saying. 2 steps to actually log into your account. They were doing that, and they still got scammed. This lady got scammed by Chase, letting them do like $160,000 worth of wires. That's also in that scam playlist, guys, if you want to check it out. It's amazing to me. So I just want you guys to be careful now, especially that we are in the holiday season. They are ramping these things up, and Cyber Monday just passed. So I hope that nobody got scammed doing Cyber Monday. I really wanted to put this video out before this holiday shopping weekend, but I was a little under the weather, so I wasn't able to get it out until now. So I apologize, but better late than never, because these things go on all the time, but it's really going to be amped up now because we're in the holiday season. Again, guys, leave me some comments down below. Let me know what if you experienced any of this, know anybody that has experienced any of this. What are you going to do differently going forward when it comes to your accounts? Are you going to start using your credit card more often to pay for things that you was going to pay for anyway? Not creating credit card debt. We're not doing that. But things that we're going to be paying anyway, just to give you that added protection. And then you pay the credit card companies back with the cash that's inside of your account. Okay. And then you won't have to worry about fraudulent transactions from that standpoint. Okay. But just making sure you're not clicking on anything. You're not answering phone calls that are making you verify your last 4 of your social, your just your personal information, who's your what's your address, your zip code, just all the stuff that they're trying to piece together to get your information. Okay. Thank you again for tuning in to Starr Knows Credit. Also, the Credit Ready program is now on school. Y'all can join the Credit Ready program for $10 a month now, guys. 6-week course that you can take as long as you want to take. You could do the whole 6-week course in a month, or you can spread it out. But we are really, really kicking this off. I just put it on the school platform right there at Black Friday. So I will leave a link to invite you into that, because it is a private course. Okay, so this is not public. It's only by invitation that you are allowed to even get into this course. So if you're interested, I will leave the link down below, or you can always email me at ready@starrknowscredit.com, ready@starrknowscredit.com. And I appreciate you guys, and I will see you in the next video.